was a nice good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, distinguished panelists, and honored guests. I am Richard Ibarra. On behalf of MNC Inspiring Success, we welcome you to Liliana Rossi Hall, named after Dr. Liliana Rossi, our former Chief Program Officer and resident feminist leader. I also want to recognize our founders, Eva and Rachel Wolfson, who opened this campus that carries their name in 1921. How fitting it is to be here on the date in 1920, 103 years ago, when the 19th Amendment was ratified and certified 8 days later. Women in our country and around the world have fought and made lots of progress. Still, there is so much to do. It is always a great experience to be with our national leader, who met my predecessor, Sam Ruiz, and has been part of the MNC family for over 37 years, and has championed all that is good and important in our country today and for all the years she's represented us. It is my super honor to welcome our forever Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Richard Ibarra. As we observe this historic day, when Tennessee was the last state to ratify the amendment, we said we have to come here. We have to come back to MNC. We were here recently, and we did dance then that day too. Our motto is, you can never dance too much. We want to celebrate our accomplishments. So let us applaud Richard Ibarra for being such a wonderful leader and hosting us. When I told Richard that we wanted to observe this day, but next week is Equality Day, the actual becoming law, but this was the day of ratification, so critical. He said, well, I've been raised by a feminist mom, and this is a day that is important to me as well. So thank you, Richard, for all of the policies that you have that are reflective of your feminist mom for women in the mission and now beyond into 15 neighborhoods and maybe even outside of San Francisco. Richard Ibarra, thank you so much again. It's an honor to be here. So here we are. Some of you have heard me tell the story that the first time I was going to the White House as a leader in the Congress. I mean, I had been to the White House many times as an appropriator, as an intelligence committee person, and I never thought that much about going. You know, as well, it's another meeting. And so I didn't have any apprehension about going. Let me stand up and talk to you. So when I got there and we went into the room and the door closed behind me, I realized that this was unlike any meeting I had ever been to before in the White House. In fact, it was unlike any meeting any woman had ever been to. A cabinet meeting is so important, but you're there because the president appointed you. I was going into this meeting as a co-equal branch of government, Article 1, the legislative branch representing the Congress of the United States. And so it was pretty awesome. And President Bush was president at the time, very gracious, welcoming, the first time a woman, and blah, 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 blah. And, and I say blah, 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 because I couldn't hear the rest of what he said, because all of a sudden, sitting in my chair, I was very closed in. I was very closed in. I didn't know what it was. I'd never felt that way before. And I realized that Elizabeth Cady Stenn, Susan B. Anthony, Lucretia Mott, Sojourner Truth, Alice Paul, everybody was on that chair with me. It was very tight. And I could hear them say, at last we have a seat at the table. And of course, my first reaction is, we want more. We want not just women, but people of color, the beautiful diversity and inclusiveness of our country. So as we observe this day, we know that we stand on the shoulders of those suffragists who worked, they marched, they starved, they were starved, they did all of this to get women to have the right to vote. And what was remarkable about it was the diversity of that. Women of color participated in that, even though they would not get the right to vote until many years later and more advocacy. So it's just a remarkable achievement. The headlines at the time said, when this vote took place in Tennessee, and then the actual enactment, women given the right to vote. Get out of here. Women weren't given anything. Again, marched, fought, defied family by going out there and being outspoken about all of this. In fact, they started 175 years ago at their convention in Seneca Falls. So as we sit here, we know that we stand on those brave shoulders, but other people are standing on ours. Our children, we want them to have more rights, not fewer, as the Supreme Court has taken us down that path. So to be here at MNC and to hear the work that is being done, I had a beautiful conversation listening to the work that is being done for women, for children, mentoring for the children, whether it's about jobs, about homelessness, about health care, so many aspects of it in a place that treats people with respect, culturally, linguistically appropriate, and again, recognizing people with other abilities and other strengths that they bring to the table. So today we wanted to be here to celebrate the progress we're making, is to have women decision-making and women making the decisions and women creating the solutions to all of the challenges we face. Because we do truly believe that when women succeed, America succeeds. So this is a patriotic duty. So I thank all of you who have been doing this advocacy to salute yourself for honoring your patriotic duty, because in expanding freedom had always been expanded from the beginning of our country. A country founded like none other on the equality of people, but our founding documents did not always reflect that. But they had the wisdom to make the Constitution amendable. And so ever expanding, abolition of slavery, right to vote, women right to vote, the list goes on. Until, and then marriage equality, and then the Dobbs decision, which was the first time in American history where we have pulled back on the expansion of democracy. So that is an important issue because we want our children, our girls to have, our young women to have more rights, not fewer, and we want to do so in a way. I'm writing a book right now, and I'm thinking about calling it "And Our Flag Is Still There." You know, that's in the national anthem. I'm from Baltimore. It was written there. And in the national anthem, people usually cheer when it said, toward the end. You know, it's a baseball game, and I cheer at the end. But I cheer when it says, especially now, proofs of the night, because we're in a period of night here in terms of a threat to our democracy, that our flag was still there. Yay! Our flag is still there, and the pledge we make to it, with liberty and justice for all. With liberty and justice for all. So, as we celebrate and observe this day, it is celebrating expanding freedom in our country, and again, the call to action to continue to do that. Just one aside, because the last person to vote in Tennessee, got a note from his mom. Whatever it said, and they have a record of it, I've seen it in Nashville, he voted right. Thanks to his mom. So, so for the moms, thank you all so much for being here to celebrate. I look around the room, I see so many activists, including my own daughter, Christine, but so many of you have been involved in all of this so long. I now have the privilege of yielding. Well, first let me say who we're here with. Megan Pryor, you've seen her at some other of these events. Megan, thank you for your leadership. Carlina Hansen, you'll be hearing from her. Thank you, Carlene, for being with us. Earlier this morning, I was hearing, I heard from you, shall we say, Belen Gonzalez, the COO, and her presentation is just dazzling, and you'll hear it soon. But now I am pleased to yield to someone I'm a big fan of, Kimberly Ellis. She is the director. The director of the Department of the Status of Women. But I've seen her leadership in so many aspects, whether it's policy, whether it's politics, whether it's just community-wide involvement. She really is a star of the IP. Kimberly Ellis.
Can we give it up again for the always, forever, our Madam Speaker of the House? What an honor it is to be here today, to be in her presence, and to be seated right next to her to get some of those amazing, fierce warrior vibes kicking off. Thank all of you so much for carving out time in your schedule to be here today. Thank you to MNC for hosting us, and for all of the staff at MNC who have been gracious hosts to us. I am the director for the San Francisco Department on the Status of Women, which has in the last couple years undergone a transformation such that we have reframed the work of the department in 3 new core service areas. The first one being health and safety, the second one being economic security, and the third one being civic engagement and political empowerment. No surprise, that one is one of my favorites. And I want to just start there by really speaking to the proposed legislation that Madam Speaker has, and that is the Freedom to Vote Act. And we talked about the importance of understanding where we are right now in this country with respect to freedoms. It's the first time freedoms have been taken away from us. And so the Freedom to Vote Act that Madam Speaker has put forth is a really important piece of legislation that we need to keep our eyes on and to do everything we can do to ensure that it gets passed. 3 really important things that it will do is make Election Day a holiday, which also would be implementing voter-verified paper ballots, so bringing election integrity, as well as improving access for voters with disabilities, as well as our veterans. So really important piece of legislation with respect to increasing access to the ballot box and protecting our democracy. So I just wanted to start off there because it's important for us to really ground the conversation and today and why we're here and what we're doing. 3 primary things that I've been thinking about when I think about the 103rd anniversary of the right to vote that is coming up. There's another anniversary that is taking place in August, and that is the 50th anniversary of hip-hop. And one of my all-time favorite hip-hop artists is Lauryn Hill. And one of my all-time favorite songs is Everything is Everything. And so when I think about the issues that we are fighting for today and have been fighting for a long time, I think about that song, Everything is Everything, because everything is connected. Whether it be climate change or childcare, student loan debt, justice reform, or abortion rights, everything is everything. And so what I would offer is, as we look to prepare for another grand battle royale next year, we need to remember that we can't afford to fight singularly on our passion issues. We have to fight for all the issues because everything is truly everything. Second, I want to remind us, because I think we've always known this, no one is coming to save us. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. We are the Calvary. And so when we think about all of the things that are on the line right now, we need to understand that in order to bring about change, we need to roll up our sleeves, dig in, and get ready to fight for it. No one is coming to save us. We will save ourselves. And then finally, some of you know that I have been in California for almost 30 years, but I originally hail from the South. I am a Tennessee girl. I grew up in a very strong, matriarchal, black, female-headed household. And my grandmother had a lot of colloquialisms. And one of them was, we should always stay ready so we don't have to get ready. And another thing my grandmother said to me was, she called me Kimmy. Kimmy, don't you ever, ever, ever start a fight. But should you find yourself in a fight, you better finish it. And so I want to just share that because we have found ourselves in a fight. It is a fight for our very existence. Everything that we love is being attacked. We are being attacked on all fronts. Women, our LGBTQ and trans community, black and brown people, our environment, the indigenous community, we are all being attacked. We are at war. And so, although we didn't start this fight, it is ours to finish. And I want to close by reminding us what happens when women stand up and fight back. 7 words: California, Michigan, Vermont, Montana, Kentucky, Kansas, Ohio. Since the fall of Roe, abortion rights have been on the ballot in 7 states. And in all 7 fights, women have won. We are 7-0. So as we march on to this 103rd anniversary, and as we march on towards Rovember Part 2 next year, let us remember that when women stand up and fight, women win. And when women win, America wins. And now it is my pleasure to pass the mic to my panelist, Carlina Hansen. Carlina.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. You are just a force, and proud to be at a table with you, as I am, of course, with Madam Speaker. As Kimberly said, my name is Carlina Hansen. I'm a Senior Program Officer at the California Healthcare Foundation. We're a healthcare philanthropy focused on making sure that the healthcare system works for Californians with low incomes and for communities who have traditionally faced the greatest barriers to care. As I said, I am incredibly honored to be here with my fabulous fellow panelists and want to thank Speaker Emerita Pelosi and her staff for bringing us together today. Given that we are celebrating the ratification of the 19th Amendment, I want to appreciate the fact that many of us hold the very special superpower to vote. So it is incumbent on us to use it. And there are many people who are doing just that. A recent Kaiser Family Foundation survey said that the Supreme Court's decision on Dobbs, which of course overturned Roe versus Wade, has made them more motivated to vote. I'd be remiss if I didn't start by celebrating the importance of the Affordable Care Act for women's health. Let's give it up. Among the many, many things the ACA did, it brought with it a coverage for a whole host of preventive services for women, including breast cancer screening, bone density screening, and birth control. This was groundbreaking, and in California, we have made it clear that we are going to protect the right to those preventive services despite efforts to undercut the ACA. Madam Speaker's tenacious work on the ACA has made her one of the country's greatest healthcare heroes, and it is one of the many, many reasons I am humbled to be here with her today. We know that at the family level, women control about 80% of the healthcare decisions in the home. They are more likely to be the primary caretakers of the family, making appointments and healthcare purchasing decisions. But despite the ways in which we take care of our families, our rights to control our own health and bodies is still consistently under attack. The Dobbs decision was a devastating blow, and while California is a safe state for abortion access, we still need to continue that we make sure continue to make sure that we minimize barriers to accessing abortion care in the state. And at a federal level, some of our California legislators have worked to advance the Women's Health Protection Act in an effort to support access at a national level. The overturning of Roe v. Wade has also intensified efforts to make it more difficult to use, obtain, and provide contraceptive care. Not only does contraception help people control whether and when to have children, data also tell us that it helps people space their pregnancies, and it gives them more agency over their education, work life, financial, and professional futures. It's important that providers can continue to support their patients with contraceptive care and education, and federally funded programs like Title X and the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program, which have also come under threat, have long provided important funding to that network of providers. When we look at data about women's health, we cannot pretend that all things are equal. Women with low incomes and women of color, generally speaking, face the greatest barriers to accessing high-quality health care and have poor health outcomes. This is in large part because of the shameful impact of systemic racism, which is very real in healthcare as it is in society. And for women, there is no more shocking a place that this shows up than in birth outcomes. Black mothers, by far, experience the highest rates of maternal morbidity and mortality. And we are never going to close the gap on outcomes for people of color if we don't confront racism head on and generate policies and interventions that close the gaps in outcomes for communities of color. I hope that we will continue to use the power of our vote to impress upon our elected officials what we care about, so that leaders like Speaker Emerita Pelosi can represent us to the best of their abilities in Washington, D.C., and we know that she does that. Thank you so much, and with that, I will pass the mic to, well, I won't pass it because she's got one, to Bailyn Gonzalez, Chief Operations Officer at Mission Neighborhood Centers, our fabulous host today. Bailyn.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlina. I am honored to be here with you, Madame Pelosi, and this panel of change makers to talk about what is needed now and to celebrate women's achievements. Professionally, in my role here at MNC, I get to work alongside 85% of women colleagues, and we see day in and out the status and the needs of women and families. In particular, the need for universal affordable child care, raising the federal income eligibility guidelines, livable wages for our educators, tax credits for our families, and mental health supports are crucial. I remember a single mom who was homeless, sleeping in the park with her child here in San Francisco, that I enrolled them into childcare. Then the child having daily meals, and of us sending the family home with leftover meals. And finally, the mother getting a job and the child getting the supports that they needed. Education and care equals stability. At MNC, our doors remained open during COVID. Our early care educators were the pillars to allow essential workers to work. Women kept the economy going. Personally, as a Latina, proud wife to a great husband and a mother of a 2- and 10-year-old, I want to call Congress on the importance of ensuring that the child tax credit is revived so that we can ensure that working families are paying no more than 7% of their income on child care, get livable wages, and families have more child care delivery mixed model type options of care in their communities. You can go anywhere, go to the park, go to the grocery store. Everyone is talking about child care and how expensive it is, everybody. The Child Care for Working Family Act is the most realistic way to help expand the labor force at a time when the economy needs workers the most. We know early quality education is the key for our future citizens, and now is the time. Let's come up with solutions to have women come off the sidelines and into the workforce. Thank you, and now I would like to introduce to you Megan Pryor with the Apprenticeship Coordinator Operating Engineers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, MNC, for hosting this. I feel so honored to be amongst other women who are fighting for like-minded ideas and just education and for the kids and for us. I'm super excited. I'm Megan Pryor. I'm with the Operating Engineers Apprenticeship Program. I am the first African American apprenticeship coordinator in the history of my union. We are the largest building trades union in the country, and recently, with the great help of our Madam Speaker, the building infrastructure has passed. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that, but basically it means for us, for my apprentices, I have 80 apprentices right now, and the infrastructure bill that just recently passed means that they will have jobs. They will be able to take their kids to daycare. They will be able to work, make a living wage, and not be pushed out of San Francisco or Oakland or, Berkeley. Wherever they're staying, they'll be able to make a living wage and stay. And so thank you so much for that. And I'm super excited about that. I know what it's like to be out there operating the heavy machinery, and so I fought to get in this position that I'm in right now so that I can better advocate for my female apprentices, whether it's child care, whether it's hours, whether it's being treated fairly on the job site, whether it's getting the overtime that you deserve, because a lot of the times they get sent home early and their male counterparts get to stay and get the overtime. So I knew coming up in the role that I'm now holding, I am so happy that I get to work with Madam Speaker and share my story with all these women on stage and continue to be an advocate for them. And, next year is going to be big for us. And when Local 3, the largest building trades in the country, comes out to vote, we usually get the vote. And so I'm proud of that. So, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Measure L, but we rallied for that, and now we have that as well. More infrastructure, more roads being paved correctly, more bridges, more. And so I'm just happy and excited for that. I'm happy to be here, and I like to keep things short and sweet. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Carlina. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, COO Gonzalez. That's a big humma in this organization. Thank you, Mei-Ling. But thank all of you. Listening to our presentation, and we're going to have an interaction here now, but listening to the presentation, I think it's really important for you all to know in the legislation that happened in the 2 years that we had the majority, and President Obama had his first 2 years. We had in the legislation, and for a period of time it persisted, but now we need to extend. We had the Biden child tax credit. Nearly half the children on poverty were removed from poverty because of the Biden child tax credit. So we need to extend it. That's why we have to win the election. Affordable child care, so essential. So essential. Who's taking care of the children? This is for moms and for dads. Family and medical, parental leave. Being able to take time off for whoever it is in your family who needs your attention at that time. And home health care. this is really important because it's not just child care. It could be sibling care. It could be a person with a disability in the family. It could be a senior or whatever it is. And that, again, enables people to be at work because their families are being well cared for at home. But what's really important about it is that they get, the home health care workers get paid with the respect that they deserve. At one of our town meetings on this subject, again and again, this woman would come, was a home health care worker, and she'd say, when the people I work for say, I don't know if you're worth that much money per hour. And I would say back to them, is your mother worth that much money per hour? And when you put it in those terms, we know that family values have to prevail. But these were pieces of legislation which we haven't extended, but were in part of the rescue package to begin with, and we didn't get them in. This week we celebrated the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, a couple of days ago, the one-year anniversary. And in there, again, whether it's Davis-Bacon for prevailing wage or recognition that we expect people who get these credits and all the rest to be sharing our values about women, actually family members in the workplace. In the infrastructure bill and in the CHIPS, now the two bills that are about infrastructure and one CHIPS and science, there's a requirement that there'll be a 40% justice element in the infrastructure bill. So that means when we're building, we're having environmental justice as well as economic justice, diversity in the workplace, and again, the apprenticeship program, which the other side of the aisle has a different version of it. It's really, you call it the corporate program, but not the apprentice program. And then on the other side of that, in the CHIPS and science, if you are to get a grant there, you have to have child care in your workforce. So this is all about recognizing that we have to have more women, more diversity, more inclusiveness in the workplace if we're going to have the best thinking and ideas. It's not just a favor to the person, it's an imperative for the country. One other thing I'll say before, okay. One other thing that I'll say, addressing what Carlina, with all of our presenters talked about, but I'm really focused on the voting, the bill. It's had various names along the way. But what it also does is to reduce the role of big, dark money in politics. And that is very, very important to women's empowerment. Big, dark money. Big, dark money says that you cannot have gun violence prevention because of the strength of the gun industry. Big dark money says that you cannot have climate initiatives because of the strength of the fossil fuel industry. Big dark money says that pharma can dominate the cost of drugs, and that takes me back to the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. It was not only the biggest initiative to save the planet. As we mourn and are sad about Maui, we have to do something to prevent it in the future, and hope and pray that families can have their comfort from our prayers. But we also have to help them, first and foremost. But nonetheless, the biggest $370 billion to save the planet for the children. A health care bill, clean air, clean water, a jobs bill, keeping us preeminent globally in the green technologies and all the jobs that spring from that, with the requirement to do child care, et cetera, in the workplace. It's a security issue, but people will fight. If there are droughts and things, there'll be migration, there'll be fight for habitat and resources because of these assaults from the disasters. And it's a values issue. If you believe, as do I, that this is God's creation and we need to be good stewards of it, we know that's our responsibility. But even if you don't share that religious belief, we all agree that morally we have a responsibility to the children, to the future, to keep the planet safe for them. And do so with environmental justice, with inclusiveness and diversity in the decision-making to make it so. And then just finally, what's called the Inflation Reduction Act, and it has reduced inflation, but what it also does is decrease prices. I talked about Big Pharma and how they have ruled the roost in terms of pricing. Well, in this bill, up until now, for seniors, it had been $4, $5, or $600 a month for insulin. Under this bill, $35 a month for seniors on Medicare. For seniors on Medicare, now we want to spread that. $2,000 a year cap for what seniors are required to pay for. Now that sounds like a lot, but when you see the cost of these drugs, you know that that's drastic. It has other provisions. You know what Pharma's doing now? They want to take it to court to reverse all of that. You know what the Republicans are doing in Congress? They said their campaign agenda for the next election is to reverse everything that is in that bill, including protecting the air our children breathe, the water they drink, and saving the planet. So again, big, dark money is so dominant. And our young people know that if you take out the big, dark money dynamic, you can have much better policy for the people. Not for politics, but for the people. So thank you for your patriotism and what you are doing for women. This Dobbs decision was an assault on our democracy. This is a freedom issue. We were lobbying in Wisconsin for the judgeship there, and we won. And if you look to Kansas and even Ohio the other day, I was there on that subject. This was about not necessarily just a woman's right to choose. It was about an assault on freedom. An assault on freedom. So as we fight for our rights, we're fighting for freedom writ large in our country. And that is an obligation that we have to the future and a responsibility that we have also to the women who took us to this place so many years ago. With that, now we'd like to have, I think there's some, who's going to,
Yes.
okay? Eileen's going to lead us.
So we have some audience questions that we got from the audience. So I'll go ahead and read the first one. And what hopeful signs do you see that teachers locally and in the U.S. are being recognized with compensation and benefits commensurate with their importance? What are key steps to take to improve that recognition and pay?
Now, our teachers, oh my gosh, thank God for them. They have, as we thank God and pray for them, we have to pay them adequately. The teachers have been so much a part of our agenda when we did all of our bills, when we did the CARES Act for COVID, when we did other legislation, and then with the rescue package under President Biden, to make sure that there was a recognition of the perspective of our teachers, but also we just have to pay them more. They are the custodians of our children for a period of time during the day. I spoke at San Francisco State yesterday to thank mostly the hundreds of teachers there, and they and again, book burning, or not burning, but just an assault on democracy. And I told them, I think they may have been surprised, but nonetheless they reacted to it, that in the Congress, my colleagues have said to me, why don't we just abolish the Department of Education? You know why we should? Because they support public education. And you know what public education does? It teaches children critical thinking. Imagine that they were objecting to teaching children critical thinking. So again, not to be a fearmonger, but to talk about the reality of why that question is so important. Teachers are important. We have to pay them more. We respect what they do. And we, again, listen to them as we form public policy. Does anyone else?
Thank you. How do we inspire and encourage women to step into leadership? Anyone on the panel?
Sure. Ask them to run. And when they run, support them. I spent almost a decade as the executive director of Emerge California. I also worked for the national Emerge America and had the incredible honor of traveling all across the country and starting the Emerge programs in different states. Emerge currently runs in almost 30 states right now across the country and has a collective win rate of more than 75%. We have almost 1,000 alums here in California, half of which are currently in elected office, including our mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, who we love, our lieutenant governor, first woman to be lieutenant governor, Eleni Kounalakis, and the first black woman state controller in California for the fourth largest economy in the world, Malia Cohen. And so many more. But the important thing that we need to know is that we need to dispel the mythology that women are not as competitive as men. When women run, they win at the same or higher rates as male candidates. So it isn't that women don't win, it's that women aren't running. And so we need to get more women running, flood the market, if you will, with strong, viable, values-based women candidates running for office. And when they run, we need to support them to get them elected because the proof is in the pudding. And what research shows us is that when we get more pro-choice, Democratic women seated at decision-making tables, what we get on the other side is legislation and policy that is more fair, more equitable, and more just for everybody. And so ask a woman to run. The research shows that we have to ask 7 times before a woman will consider running for office. So I'm going to ask so many of you in here many times, but we need to get more women at those decision-making tables. We've seen firsthand what happens when you have a woman in charge and leading. Yes? We need more Speaker Nancy Pelosi's at every single level. And I am of the mindset of one of my all-time favorites, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who says, why stop at half? We want all the seats. So let's run and let's win.
If I may, this is one of my favorite subjects because here I want to show you this thing I got when I came in this morning, this shirt. It's, all right. It's the Mission Girls. The Mission Girls. The Mission Girls have what it takes. They have confidence. They know their why. And when I went to Congress, Barbara Boxer was there, and we were 12 Democratic women and 11 Republican women, 23 women out of 435. Sick. So we said, look, from our side of the aisle, this is not right. I mean, we can't. How can we have good policy if we have this imbalance here? With all due respect to the people who are there, all due respect. And so we made a plan. Right now, we have 96 women out of 213 Democrats, 96 women, and we want more. So we really increased our number. We want to get, as you said, past half. Why would we settle for that? But women, the thing is that, and I get this question asked all the time, all over the country. What advice would you give a young woman who, or even a new woman going from kitchen to Congress, as I did, housewife to House Speaker, as I did? Know your why. Know why you want to do this. You know why, whether it's health care, whether it's workers' rights and women in the workplace, whether it's electing more women and again, doing so in a way that has them on a path to leadership, whatever it happens to be. Know your why. Know what you are talking about. If you're talking about climate, or if you're talking about education, whatever the subject, have enough knowledge about it, because you won't know it all, and we all have to be made current. So don't feel lack of confidence because you don't know it all, but know something. So when you're persuading other people to follow you and you have a plan strategically to make a difference, whether it's in public office or public service, another form of public office, that people will be attracted to your judgment. So you know your why, you know your what, you know your how, and then understand this. Nothing is more wholesome for America than the fuller participation of women in politics and in government. As Kimberly said, decisions that are made are much better when more women are at the table. Now, I'll just tell you, when I ran for leadership the first time, people encouraged me to run. I really wasn't seeking that, but they encouraged me to run. So when I decided to run, the men said, "Who said she could run?" Light my fire, guys. I mean, who said she could run? I need your permission. And they said, well, now we have so many more women in Congress and they want to see a woman in leadership. I said, I don't want anybody voting for me because I'm a woman, and I don't want anybody voting against me because I'm a woman. But I will tell you this. Oh, then they said, make a list of the things the women want, and we'll do that. I'm telling you, this is 20 years ago. We're not talking about a long time ago. Oh, guys, poor babies. Well, it's not your turn. I said, well, wait a minute. You've had your turn for over 200 years. We're stepping up. We're stepping up. So know how important it is. When it's not for the faint of heart. This is a very tough thing. You become a target in so many ways. But if you know your why, it's all worth it. And I quote a Republican president, Teddy Roosevelt. And you get in the arena, you're no longer a spectator. You're a fighter. And as you've heard me say again and again, when you're in that arena, you have to be ready to take a punch. But you have to already be ready to throw a punch for the children.
At the risk of sounding cliche, seeing is believing. And so for me, being in the field as an operating engineer, just starting out, a lot of the men would tell me, oh, give your keys to the other operator, you're not going to make it. Or what are you doing here? You need to be in the kitchen. And so like you said, Nancy, fuel my fire, right? And so that just pushed me to keep going harder. And then to see other women out there and to now have my apprentices on the job site and be able to give them advice and them being able to see how far I've come and see where they're at, that motivates them. If you could do it, I can do it. And so I talk to them and tell them that if I could do it, you can do it. And you bring the ladder down so you bring more women up behind you. And so, yeah.
Okay, so another question. How can federal government work with local government to support women with disabilities?
This is very important because it is in our legislation. Of course, we have ADA, which is something we respect and celebrate the anniversary and this or that, but also the improvement of it. But again, I hate to keep using a word, but funding is really very important in so many ways for paratransportation, for so many different ways, for mobility, for, again, recognizing that people can work from home or they can work from the office. They have different choices on how they go forward. Sasha, my darling, she is appointed to the commission, the National Commission on People with Disabilities, and she's my, let's have a little hand for her. She's my teacher in all of this. But this is very important because in our country, we are not talking about judging people for what they cannot do, but respecting them for what they can do. We don't even say people with disabilities anymore. Practically, we say people with other abilities, But it's a very important thing. And it's important to President Biden. He sees that as we're doing each piece, that we make the accommodation that we need to make.
Thank you. The next question, we cannot let Senator Tuberville put the country's security at risk while he hopes for a Republican president. What is being done to overcome his hostage taking of the military personnel?
So stupid. I mean, it's really... You wonder about the Republican leadership in the United States Senate, that they would let somebody undermine the strength of our national security. Because as you may or may not be aware, when you make these appointments and promotions and the rest, if you're acting because somebody is acting like a fool in the United States Senate, you cannot have their full authority to give orders, to make decisions, and all the rest. And so it is curtailing our ability to do our best possible job to protect and defend our country, which is the oath of office. Now, in the Senate, they have, I'll show my bias here, 99 senators are not enough. Any one senator can hold up the works. Isn't that shameful? And what the Republicans just are like, eh. And it's really they have to take matters into their own hands and have some discipline in their ranks, because this is so very, very wrong. And by the way, they are so pro-defense, blah, 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 and yet they would undermine the personnel that are there. And why? Why? Because the defense initiative in the bill, the defense authorization bill, enables women who serve in the military to be able to go to another state if they need reproductive health care and get time off and some pay in order to travel. It's, again, right back to controlling women and, again, not making women as welcome as they should be, and as they have been or becoming under President Obama and President Biden in the military. But it's that provision that he said, unless that's changed, he's not going to approve of anybody. And we're not moving on the women's rights. And so hopefully he will see the light. He also has said white supremacy is a matter of opinion. What? Anyway.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to open it up if there are any press questions.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance to ask a question. I'm with KQED. First of all, I want to apologize because my question would be off topic. But I wanted to ask about self-driving cars and what your opinion is on the state or the city expanding the permits on unlimited amounts of self-driving cars through the city. Once again, I apologize because I know it's out of topic. I know it's...
We consider every woman to be a woman's topic. Our economy, our national security, in every way. The gentleman's question is about self-driving cars in San Francisco. And there's no subject that has been more controversial in our city than when we had the discussion of dogs on a leash. That was one that... I had fights in my own office about that. But anyway, as you probably know, the California Public Utilities Commission is, appears to be calling for more self-driving cars on the streets of San Francisco. Our city attorney has said we want another hearing on this, and we want to be able for San Francisco to weigh in and have a say about that. And that's really, I think, where we have to be. It's about safety. And this election is going to be about safety, about public safety, what we do in the Tenderloin, all those kinds of things. But on this issue, it would be presumptuous of me to speak for San Francisco, but I'm with San Francisco, however they decide they want within our city in terms of self-driving cars. Now, technology may take us at some point to a place where this is not as, shall we say, threatening to people about the safety and security of it. But I think that San Francisco is on the right path. Let's have more of a hearing as to what San Franciscans think about that rather than what the state public utilities think about that. Thank you.
There's no more questions from press, right? Okay. Okay, I think that kind of concludes the speaking program. We're actually going to take a group photo. So if I can ask the speakers to stand and with the entire audience, and the audience to stand and come kind of towards the stage right here, if possible. So we're going to take one group photo. And our wonderful colleague Corey is up here, is going up to the balcony right now.
As we gather together, I want to just